How many things in life never undergo changes? I couldn't really think of one either. Most things in this world have to change or advance at some point. For instance, modes of transportation. We've certainly come a long way from the 1908 Model T. Just like these have evolved to accommodate changing needs and growth over time, so the framers of our Constitution needed to make provision for the present and future changes that it would need. So they thoughtfully and prudently wrote Article 5. Now, there are two methods for the proposal of an amendment, either by a 2/3 vote of Congress or by a national convention requested by 2/3 of the states. There are also two methods for ratifying amendments, either by 3/4 of the state legislatures or conventions in 3/4 of the states. 26 of our 27 amendments have been proposed in Congress and ratified by the state's legislatures. Only the 21st Amendment was ratified through a state convention. I found it interesting to note that once the state votes to ratify an amendment, they may not withdraw their decision. But if they vote against ratification, they may change their mind and ratify it later. Congress left for each state to determine for itself how delegates to its ratifying convention should be chosen, which is just one of many examples of how Article 5 emphasizes the federal character of the amendment process. Amendments are proposed at the national level, but ratification and all matters related to the ratification process are handled on a state-by-state basis. Now, the Constitution does not set a definite time limit for ratifying proposed amendments, but the case of Coleman v. Miller in 1939 affirmed the common practice of leaving questions of timeliness up to Congress. The 18th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd Amendments contain clauses that state a specific deadline for ratification. But for all other amendments, the timetable was merely part of the proposing resolution. During this century, most proposed amendments have a 7-year time limit requirement. Most of the amendments were ratified within 1 to 2 years. However, there have been several extremes in our history. The 26th Amendment, giving 18-year-olds the right to vote, boasted a record-breaking ratification time of just 3 months and 7 days. At the other end of the spectrum, Amendment number 27, which stipulates that no law changing congressional salaries can take effect until after the next general election, was one of 12 amendments originally submitted by the first Congress in 1789. This amendment, however, lay dormant until the 1980s, when it was brought back up for ratification. The proponents have Alabama to thank for being the required 38th state to ratify it more than 200 years later in 1992. Also, in my study of Article 5, I found a few items of constitutional trivia that you might find interesting. As far as any limits on scope, the Constitution only places one restriction on what an amendment may or may not do. This restriction is found in Article 5, which protects the smaller states from losing their equal representation in the Senate. Finally, do you know where the only typo error in the Constitution is found? It's in Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, where the word department should properly read departments. Clearly, amending the Constitution can be a somewhat grueling process, requiring broad support from both the public and multiple levels of government. But the tedious nature of the process speaks for the framers' forethought in requiring that proposed amendments be validated for both their necessity and impact. Because of that, we today can be confident that our Constitution will continue to achieve the objectives stated in our preamble, from forming a more perfect union to securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.